Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Act 1. These are ghost stories, doll. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Lock Tomb podcast where two brand spanking new novitiates explore the Lock Tomb series for the first time, while a couple of dried out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We just finished reading Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and Marie and I are co-hosting this week.
Ooh.
We are extremely excited because our novitiates have officially passed their final rites. So, Brooke and John, how are you feeling about graduating from nunlets to lictors?
I know too much, and I can never be allowed to go.
You can never go home again. This is true.
My body is ready. That's all I got.
There is so much more meat on the bones of this series, and it is tempting to dive just right into Hair of the Ninth. But first, we're taking a couple of weeks to reflect on our experiences in Canaan House. You've already got a few reflective episodes. And although Hannah voted for reflection this time via interpretive dance, we can't really...
I stand by it.
I'm not good at video editing.
Fine.
Both John and I got her to agree to just podcasting instead.
I was in for the interpretive dance as well.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
I'm up on the interpretive dance. I'm not up on the learning how to video edit. We just barely figured out audio editing, you know?
I get it.
There is a lot to get to, which is why this week we've chosen chaos. So put it in the hole, Griddle. Act 2. QED, it's a conspiracy.
Everything this week is safe for anyone who has finished Gideon the Ninth.
So obviously, this book is a bit of a mindfuck. At various points, you thought teacher was a lictor or God. For a brief moment, you somehow thought Corona Beth was a lictor. At some points, you were all in on murderous ghosts. It's been a roller coaster is what I'm saying. You've had the opportunity to listen to some of the discussions Hannah and I were having behind your backs in our sanitized spoiler episodes. So, what are your thoughts?
Man, we were so close so often, right? Like
We need
so
dumber friends.
I'm
there
furious.
were definitely some absolutely rampant, wild speculations as well. It was well balanced. But listening back, it seems like we would like very frequently pick up on things and posit an idea that was nearly spot on. And then we'd either twist it or just back burner it for like long term until it became a lot more obvious.
So funny to watch.
So I was listening to the spoiler sections that were sanitized for those of us who have only read Gideon the Ninth. And Marie and Hannah, you were talking about how Tamsin Muir like frequently just tells you the information you need to know. And like we might notice it, but then our brains don't just want to like jump to the super obvious gruesome conclusion without like some like more direct validation.
Or rather, you do jump to the obvious conclusion, but you don't jump to like the sick and twisted conclusion.
Right, but it's the difference between like what is the most likely outcome and what is the simplest outcome. And Tamsin always defaults actually to the simplest outcome, and you go with what would reasonably happen in your world.
True. I mean,
so you like skin over the edges so that it like fits in with human psychology the way you want to see it. And she's just like, nope, 16 to 8.
Yeah, the
8 die.
The 16 to 8, like I was like I had this like ambiguous idea of a Hunger Games idea, and like that was never coming to fruition. And so I was so willing to believe that calves were just like a support figure to lictors. I mean, in an external way. External support, not like internal support.
I thought so too.
And like, I don't know, they could just be mortal.
I definitely thought so as well. I thought it was just like there are 8 lictors and 8 people we don't really talk about.
Right.
Well, and considering that even in-universe people, we're like, yeah, that must be what it is.
Yes.
Until they start getting a little closer, and then and then like Silas, Palamedes, Ianthe all kind of go, huh.
Yeah, and we had even like talked earlier, like in earlier chapters about like lictors have like a concept of being undead sorcerers. Like, there was already, like, ideas there that we could connect, but we refused to do it until the winnowing challenge.
Yes. And I'll just throw out that I need to learn when to stop talking. I think just listening back to these spoilers.
Keep going exactly on this. It is going to continue to be so delicious. Please never change, John.
I called Dulcinea like 8 chapters early, and then I waffled back and forth on just random bullshit with her.
Until the point where you're like, I don't think she's a lictor anymore. Like the chapter before. John, I think you should absolutely continue doing your crazy thing because you and I are a good team in that, like, I, like, don't take it to the next step. I, like, collect the clues and I, like, sit there with my little, like, pocket full of clues, but I don't know what to do with them. And then you're like, I'm going to string these together in rampant speculation. And then I, like, listen back to it a few weeks later when the episode gets published and I go, oh, those are some good ideas. I finally understand now what you were putting together. So I think this is a great team structure. You should continue doing it.
All right. Sounds good. Coronabeth not being a necro, I think we got relatively early. Listening back, Brooke actually nailed exactly about Harrow's parents. She didn't like get exactly why they killed themselves, but she got really close in terms of like it being shame over the 200 kids, and it's kind of basically adjacent. Like she absolutely nailed that piece. Yeah. And the keys. Oh my god, the keys. Like just like the episode where Brooke was cooking with the keys and the various labs and everything. That was just so impressive listening back.
I want to vindicate all of us by pointing out that in interviews, Tamsin has said that she herself mildly loses track of the keys. And her editor was like, yeah, this is where all the keys are. And she's like, I nailed it.
She wasn't really paying
That's
enough
amazing.
attention.
It's very funny. I'm so delighted by how delicious you are as a duo. Because I agree. Brooke does this really brilliant thing often where she'll pose questions that are like questions that the characters in book ought to be posing and are skipping, where it'll be like, I wonder why it went from 16 to 8, or like, I wonder who those 2 bodies are in the incinerator. And then John takes off with wild speculation. I think my favorite part of the sanitized spoilers listening back was I had forgotten that you guys had a week where you went full Matrix, which made me really happy because at the end of the day, this is about power. It's about battery source. And so it was like a completely reasonable and semi-accurate take to be like, but what if they're using other people's bodies in order to power necromancy? And you're like,
And I don't know if I necessarily put this in the sanitized spoiler because Hannah and I have very definitely talked about it, but I don't know if I made sure to include things like this. But it's like we have our own theories that is part of the reason that Harrow is such a powerful necromancer is because she required basically the power of 200 souls dying to even exist to begin with.
We think she extra strong, 200 times strong.
Yeah.
So are there any things where you look back at the book and you feel like you should have noticed the clues? Like the clues were there, but you didn't pick up on them?
Dulcinea, for sure. So in the last week, I reread the entire book again from start to finish.
This makes me so fucking happy. I have another question related to that, but that's later.
And it's so, and I obviously picked up on it because I think I called a little bit early, but like just reading back, it's so incredibly obvious that she's not who she says she is, and it just made me slightly mad about it. Also, just the one thing I wanted to point out was at the end when they're talking about this, I didn't clock this at the beginning when they mentioned his name, but Matthias being the first name of the swordsman from the Ninth.
Yeah, Matthias Nonius is the famous swordsman of the Ninth.
Matthias.
In the audiobook, they say Matthias, but
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
That's from Redwall, which is one of my favorite series of all time. I
miss Redwall.
There are like 5 or 6 signed first editions behind me
Oh
from the Redwall
well done.
series.
Hey, are those worth reading? Because I read them in must have been 5th, 6th grade, and I don't think I ever revisited them. Would I enjoy them again as an adult?
Or is it a nostalgia thing?
No, they still hold up extremely, extremely well. So every year for Christmas, like the big gift I would get was a signed version from.
Wow!
Oh my god!
Did you
big old nerd?
Yeah, I don't think we realized we had such another big old book nerd on our. I guess must have been.
We should have.
So
I mean,
cute.
consider the
He's so
source.
cute.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
Can I ask this question then? Is what was the motivation to reread? Like, do you think you would have been obsessed? This is, I guess, kind of for both of you, and sorry that I'm like derailing this already. but do you think that you would have been like super duper mystery, like cared about this series if we weren't doing a podcast? Or do you think you would have just been like, yeah, it's a book?
At least for me, I think part of the reason that I wanted to go back and reread it was that I had put so much like effort and time into murder boarding and gotten so close on a bunch of things. I wanted to see if I could have been more correct, which I know is like the weirdest white guy answer of all time, where it's just like, I wanted to see if I could be more right. But I think the podcast certainly made me more invested in the book as opposed to tearing through it and then immediately going on to Harrow. I don't think I would have
that as well. I would have just gone.
I would not have reread before I finished the entire series. And now I think probably cumulatively reread this 4 times now, if not 5.
That's like so funny. Yeah, that's so
my
funny.
reaction at the end of this book, the first time I read it through, was very much the God damn it that we've heard from both of you. And so I started over almost immediately. And it was because I was like, nah, this makes no sense. Surely not. And then I went and read for all the clues and was so grumpy. But you have to remember also that I read all of these like basically pretty close to when they came out. And so the next book was not available. Mm-hmm. That's right. I think I would have gone like straight through. But like, so for instance, when I finished Harrow, I started Gideon again.
My copy of the Kindle, has all of the extra stuff at the end of the epilogue. And then there's the snippet for Harrow. And it has been so hard to not just be like, oh, there's probably no spoilers. It's a snippet. It's an intro. Like, let's cruise into it. Right. Like that is what I have available to me. And I am not doing it. I'm
so impressed with your self-control. Absolutely.
That is absolutely what I would have done.
Immediately huge spoilers, I feel.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have gone back and read it. The permission structure is right there to just start on Harrow.
I appreciate it, Brooke. Tell us about the spoilers that you feel like you ought to have caught, Brooke.
I agree with John that like Dulcinea actually being a lictor had more support than at least I had firmly caught on to. Again, John like said it so clearly, like for like 4 episodes, like leading up into this before he derailed himself and went in a different direction. And it was because you'd piece together like the obvious clues that there is a really impossibly powerful necromancer here. Oh, also it's Dulcinea. And also Dulcinea isn't who she says she is. But the idea that she was actually like the ancient lictor Cytherea the First, like I don't think that was as obvious as like John. I think you're trying to like, kick yourself for it.
There
now, right?
is something that I want to point out, which is she says she never lied to you.
Yes. So there's like this weird language around it. Oh,
she 100%, 1000% does. No, she has one lie that she tells, and everything else is not a lie. It is hedging and theoreticals and, her spin on things. But she introduces herself as the Lady Dulcinea Septimus.
Okay. So yeah, that's the biggest lie there is, right? You talked about this in the sanitized spoilers that like so many of the things that Cytherea, the lictor, says, and that makes sense for like an ancient lictor to say, right? It also makes sense for a like chronically dying woman around 30 to say, like calling people children, talking about her relationship with death and being scared of dying at the same time. Like all this that like can be easily ascribed to a woman of Dulcinea's like supposed situation. But what was really funny is that like even going into the chapter where Pal confronts Cytherea about being not Dulcinea, like we didn't understand that Dulcie is not Dulcie, and it was actually like an older lictor that took her place. And that the one aspect that I think kept us going in the wrong direction was that like I didn't realize that nobody had met Dulcinea in person before. Like, so we kept creating scenarios where she could still be Dulcinea and also a lictor, but not that she was replaced. Yeah. And that like displaced these 2 bodies that were in the incinerator.
Well, so one, I actually think it's remarkable that you guys picked up on Dulcinea being an imposter, right? You go back and there's lots of little details that fit with it, but I don't think it's obvious. And when I read it, she was at the bottom of my list of suspects because also partially because I really liked her. She's sassy and she's flirty and she's funny and she's smart. she's a little bit of a bitch, but I want her to want me. And I understand why Gideon is so enamored with her. I do. So I really did not understand that she was the bad guy. And then I do think perhaps the only thing that I think Tamsin did not do well in this book is I think that once she's like openly Cytherea, she's so cruel in a way that seems out of place with the person that she has been. And she's really not even like playing Dulcinea. She's just sort of being herself, I think, the rest of the time. And you're right that the things that she's saying are appropriate for someone who is trying to become a lictor and who is 30 and who is chronically ill. And the thing is that I think she basically got paused in exactly that place. She's telling you what she experienced at the age of 30, chronically ill, trying to become a lictor some 10,000 years ago or whatever. I think she's telling you accurate information for that scenario. So it's very, very easy to ascribe it to Dulcinea.
I think that it makes it even creepier because I believe her both ways 100%. I believe that if you have lived for 10,000 years, if we meet any of the other lictors, I would expect them to be completely and totally caricatures of humans. Being able to have a mask, to play at being human, but there is no way with 10,000 years of experience that you could actually truly be human anymore. Like, she is not human. She's 10,000
not human in the way
years
we
old.
recognize it.
Yeah, like not in the way that we recognize it. And so I think that it's absolutely, she understands how to play act being human. And so that part is real, right? Like she understands what it is to be human in a certain way, but it's like what makes certain people who are like literally sociopaths or psychopaths terrifying because they seem human.
I hear you, but I think that, so for me, I like the idea that she's so fully insane that it's really easy for her to flip from one like state of being to an entirely different one. So I would buy that. I don't think she's play acting at being human in some of these scenes. So like a lot of the ones where she's out on the terrace and flirting with Gideon, that feels like play acting potentially. But for instance, in the siphoning challenge, she's got Gideon's head in her lap and she's monologuing to her, like, don't let anyone do this to you. It's so cruel that we do this to people. And for me, that feels very, very real. I feel like she uses an enormous portion of this book as free therapy for herself, dumping like her problems and her thoughts about death and her shame and her guilt on other people in a way that is genuine, but that is, it's more like someone who's so unstable that they can be very genuinely themselves at one moment and then with the slightest provocation turn it into an entirely different.
I think that part of it was she was always so nice to Gideon. And it was like she had some sort of plan that even though she was going to destroy everything, she was going to keep Gideon as kind of a pet because she thought she was interesting or there was something about her. And then when things start to go wrong, she just says, well, I guess we're not doing that anymore. Right. And so then that's why it's like she's not nice anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think her humanity is channeled into this very one specific thing at this point, which is like a cause, right? The cause is no more lictors. And so she can like have like some aspect of like, you know, this is what she's here for. This is what is driving her, is that conversation she had with Gideon, right? When Gideon was being entropied out the wazoo. But like otherwise, other than that, it's all play acting.
Yeah.
What?
Phrases in this podcast.
Entropied out the wazoo.
And I was very impressed with all of you guys.
Unfortunately, that is a hurtful thing. As soon as we... Sorry, let me rephrase that. Unfortunately, after listening to the spoilers, I want to try harder. And that's not good for me.
I went right back to murderboarding. I like slacked off one week and then I started listening to our spoilers. I was like, we are such dumbasses. I need to try harder.
I spent like 4 hours last night like collecting things and kind of putting together the things that were left in this book that I want to take with me going forward. I know, it's It's horrifying.
Well, so actually the funnier thing, honestly, and I mean this sincerely, is I think it only gets worse as the series goes on.
So much worse.
I feel like Gideon is like the least of the murder boarding.
Well, it's so funny. So we're rewatching Shoresy right now, like the spinoff from Letterkenny, and there's a thing where they're talking about how the main character, he was a terrible captain. He was yelling at everybody when they were at the worst team in the league. But now that they're the best team in the league, he's even worse because he just continually yells at people and just is like trying to keep them to be good. Like it's harder to stay good than it is to stop being bad.
No, you have to work harder as you go. You don't get to slack off.
And now that's where I'm at. It's like it was hard to get our conspiracy theories, but now I need to be right. Like,
yeah. Well, this is funny. This is like there's a famous cycling quote. I can't remember who said it. That basically was. Like as you get better, it doesn't hurt less. You just go faster.
That's everything in life.
Did you guys want to talk at all about the like naming conventions, which was kind of a set of details that John picked up on really interestingly?
Yeah, obviously outside of Dulcinea.
Fucking
which
Dulcinea.
Oh my god, I can't believe I never picked up on that. I feel so embarrassed because that is right there. It's right in the that's a little on the nose, Tamsin.
I kind of think Corona Beth's name is interesting because it kind of tells you that she was always supposed to be the head of the house and never like the lictor, right? She's meant for crowndom.
Yep.
She's the elder twin, isn't she?
I think so.
That might be why she's named that way.
Yes, she is. Yeah, and it said that she was like in the normal traditions expected to take over the house. Jean-Marie and Isaac's names also like were very much like people who die young, and we caught on to their names. Yeah, and we caught on to their names a little too late, like after they already died. So, oops.
They also seem like quite normal names when you compare them to a lot of the other sounding names. So it's easier to focus on something like Protesilaus or Dulcinea than it is to focus on Isaac because we think of that as just a name, even though it's a biblical story with like a really heavy impact.
I think the fact that they are normal names actually makes them stand out a little bit more.
Fair. I, for one, can't stand the Protesilaus thing, which was something that I didn't really realize until John brought up that he's the first. He's the first to die in the Trojan War?
Oh my god!
Yep.
Yeah,
I think even before the ships land, right?
He's the first guy off the boat and he dies.
I laughed so hard.
Hannah, the next question in your outline is whether what we think is the most batshit detail that then paid off, or our favorite Easter egg. And in retrospect, I think it has to be Pro's name for me because it is the biggest fucking Easter egg to help solve the puzzle that. These were two bodies that were displaced before they landed. That's why they're so old. It was before they landed. And it's just too bad that my history and mythology knowledge sucks. But Tamsin in the back goes, his name might as well be Johnny Quick Death.
Well, also you can't say that like your mythology is bad or whatever. Like Protesilaus is a deep cut.
That is a deep cut,
in the Iliad. Like, that's a deep cut.
It's not Odysseus. It's not Achilles. Yeah, I'm with you. The rest of you have, like, Easter eggs that were your favorite or you feel is the most over-the-top impressive?
I'm excited. Based on how literal almost all of these are, like, I think part of the problem with our naming conventions is that we took it and then we were like, there's a metaphorical layer or something on there, isn't it?
No.
Or it's a little bit more complicated. Like, when we first even started talking about Protesilaus, and his name, we were like, oh, well, it's the Trojan War was cousins killing cousins, so maybe he's the first one killed by somebody in between the houses. And no, it's literally he's the first guy to die.
Jean-Marie and Isaac don't get attached.
If it's going to be literally like now I'm wondering if Harrowhark is literally going to lead like the souls of the 10 billion out of like the depths of Cannon House or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
In my notes I have written and then the frickin' names. Pro and Dulcinea, fuck you Tamsin. Jean-Marie and Isaac, fuck you Tamsin. I have a feeling that when we get to the end of the series I'm going to go Gideon and Harrow, fuck you Tamsin.
Fuck you Tamsin.
My actual Easter egg that is like the I don't know if it's a batshit detail, but it's like something that every time I read this book, it's so early on and it like makes me start crying already, which is in the very beginning of the book, as they're getting on the shuttle, before they've even got on and off the Ninth, Harrow tells Gideon that she wants to watch her die.
And it goes in reverse too. I think Gideon says something about the only way that I would help you is if I were holding the sword you fall upon.
Yeah, there is one of those too. I agree. I noticed that as well.
That's also part of one of my favorite lines in the book too, is in that whole thing of there's only like 3 jobs I'd do for you, and one of them's if you wanted to be like drop kicked off the edge of the tier.
I'd spot you if you wanted to do a backflip off the top of the spire.
Top tier. I'd hold the sword if you wanted to fall on it. Or isn't that also the one
I'd kick your ass, and there'd be like a band that comes out of the
out of the tomb saying "Whoa, a distracted ass."
Yeah. My favorite Easter eggs tend to be the things that Dulcinea says when she's just therapizing to Gideon, and Gideon just thinks she's talking, because some of them are really just depressingly very much about her relationship with her cavalier that she killed. Like it's pretty on the nose. My very favorite Easter egg is so much of a spoiler that I can't tell you. So halfway through next book, I will read it back and tell you about how funny that spoiler is.
Stay tuned for one more book.
Fucking amazing.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'd love to hear that the Easter eggs here extended to the next book.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost it's on the vein of, and you're never going to find it, so don't worry about it. Like, don't go anywhere, John.
Don't go looking.
Just don't go looking.
Oh, don't worry. I already have a mega theorem for the end of this.
Yes. But the line that I think is so funny that I think Hannah is referring to is on the vein of teacher saying, well, maybe later, Lady Judith.
It's an absolute throwaway. Then you go, wait a second, do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Well, so I guess the real question is, how well do you even remember the little details? Which brings us to this week's first game. Ooh.
First. Multiple.
Act 3. Sick of everyone's shit. This week, Marie and I have brought in some abbreviated stories we found on the subreddits Am I the Asshole and Am I Overreacting? And we're going to ask you to figure out which character wrote them and maybe who the asshole is. So I've tried to de-identify them as best as possible, removing genders and direct relationships. I think it would be most fun if we all just get to read them. So Marie, do you want to read the first one?
Okay, here we go. So, this person I can't stand was ragging on my best friend, saying some really nasty shit, making my best friend feel useless and worthless. I stood up for my friend and called out this other asshole, and then my friend turned on me and made me apologize. I'm honestly furious, thinking about never speaking to either of them again.
Oh
Am I the asshole?
It's Babs.
It's obviously Babs, yeah.
So clearly.
I can smell the hair oil and lip balm from here.
So, wait, who is the asshole in this circumstance? That's a lie. It's always Yanthe. It really doesn't matter the circumstance.
That's
right.
true.
But I think Corona Beth did this exact thing to him in chapter 8 or something.
Yeah.
9.
Hey, look at me. I'm pretty close.
Let's be
That was
real.
very impressive.
Babs is the asshole for overstepping here. He's a cavalier.
Oh, wow.
Oh, John likes the hierarchy.
Nope. Wrong. Just found out that my closest friend in the world has been doing a ton of stuff behind my back and keeping secrets from me. They won't tell me what they are doing, and they won't share any of the things they've found or even the key to the place where they found them. Yesterday, I tried to get an acquaintance to help me find out what my friend knows, and I may have tried to bribe them a little bit. This real stick in the mud called me out, and I think this is totally justified. Am I overreacting?
Well, this is Corona Beth trying to get a key.
The third will go on its knees for the sixth.
We could give you research materials. I actually feel like Corona Beth is underreacting here. If my twin had been doing all this stuff behind my back and didn't tell me and then wouldn't take me once I found out, I feel like you were justified in some serious
Crying on the floor,
some sort of pranks.
sobbing.
Yeah.
I think that was the right reaction-ish.
So next one, I had this really rocky relationship with this person who was always in a position of power and frankly a giant asshole. But lately we're growing closer and I started to realize that we have more in common with each other than either of us do with anyone else. They started to open up to me and I really feel like it could go somewhere. But today I found a person's head in a box in their closet, so I have to kill them. I'm not overreacting, just want to share.
Not overreacting.
I like how this started as it could have maybe been Column, but it's clearly Gideon.
Really close, really close. That was a hard one. That was a hard one.
Okay.
Until you got to head in the box, yeah.
I'm not overreacting.
It was really hard to de-identify that, okay? All right, here's the next one. I'm hosting a bunch of strangers for this fun mystery party, and I'm really excited because I don't get to host people very often. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but my boss who asked me to host told me to give them just one rule. The guests keep on asking me for more. I'm trying to wink as much as possible, but my hands are tied, metaphorically, obviously, because I'm typing this, and I'm feeling a bit of an asshole. Also, guests keep dying. On the upside, that really adds to the mystery. Am I the asshole?
Yes.
Freaking teacher. Ugh.
I'm so sorry that we led you so much to teacher, but he's just frankly so fucking funny.
It was fully my fault, but I just think he's hilarious.
So he never shows up in the series again, right?
Who knows? Everyone, it is a necromantic book, you guys. Death is like,
Okay. We'll have to figure out this soul thing at some point. Trying to get those 500 souls back in again. That's just the amount of organization to try and collect 500 souls out of a river.
I was at this absolutely exhaustingly boring escape room thing with a bunch of idiots, and I solved it before anyone else. And now everyone is positively pissy, and it doesn't seem warranted. It's really not my fault I'm faster than these idiots, and it's definitely not my fault that they underestimated me. I'm not asking if I'm the asshole because I'm definitely not the asshole here.
I love how, within the first, 3-4 words, I knew exactly who this was. Well done, Ianthe. We are at a training exercise with literally no supervision. Catastrophic events, including multiple murders, continue to unfold and no one will take charge. As the obvious ranking individual, I have tried to corral the situation, but met increasing pushback. I was forced to mete out discipline, and now no one will talk to me, and my access to the basement was removed by force. I am calling in reinforcements, despite the fact that this will make me the focus of more foolish ire. Am I overreacting?
I like how we couldn't even pretend to write this as anything other than you know what? Fuck you, Judith.
Here's the thing, though. In terms of am I overreacting? No. And I think a lot of people are underreacting. Once you get to the second round of murders, I think we should all get together and spend all of our focus together on solving murders. There have been murders, plural.
Yep.
Murders.
Yep.
She murdered my dirter.
What did you just say?
What?
Oh, sorry. There was a Kate McKinnon SNL sketch making fun of Pennsylvania murder mystery, Mayor of Eastwood.
Nice. Okay.
Anyway, but it's just very funny and has Pennsylvania accents. And now every time someone says murder, I think, she murdered my dirter.
Murdered my what?
Daughter.
My dirter.
Dirter.
What is a dirter?
It's
daughter.
It's daughter, similar to how water becomes water.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining.
This should have gone back in spoilers or Easter eggs, but I do appreciate that Palamides lists off all of the things that they should be taking care of. And if they knew that, then they would know what was going on. And it's if you had taken care of those 4 things, if you'd figured out who was in the incinerator, if you'd figured out why Abigail and Magnus were murdered, if you figured out any of that, you would have been there and figured out that we got a fucking lictor.
He kind of did figure it all out, but it was in his head and he didn't care to share.
Well, and
Yeah,
he only
not a huge
really,
fan
he
of
waited
that.
until he had major confirmation. But there's also another line where it's we have to focus on the living because they keep forgetting about who's in the fucking incinerator.
Which would literally solve the entire thing.
Except for Column.
Except for Colin.
bless
And I
him.
think even the book is as it turns out, they were wrong.
Yeah.
Full Arrested Development.
Me and my best friend have been training our entire lives for battle, but some of the people we know won't let us explore the cool dungeon where everyone else is going. It's super ageist. We snuck into their rooms and hit their glasses as a prank, and now we keep getting long sighs and lectures. Am I the asshole? Are we the asshole?
So this is the 4th posting. And
In my heart of
Marie's
hearts.
just crying over here.
I love the idea that they low-key prank Magnus and Abigail regularly in just dumb ways, hiding their glasses, but not too hard to find.
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. I mean, it's very... Anyway, the fourth. The fifth.
There's this sweet kid who's been fawning over me, and I'll be honest, I have no interest at all, but they just seem really lonely.
Oh, God.
And frankly, it's been nice to have someone to talk to while I work on my side project. I can tell how badly they want me, and I feel bad, but not that bad. I'm planning on sparing them, because who doesn't like a pet? I don't actually have a question at the end here, just wanted to tell someone.
Kitharia.
Monetize your side hustle of murder.
Oh, the gig economy. It strikes again.
This person who works for me, who honestly I don't even care about, is spending all their time with this absolute psycho who is not who they seem and who is definitely dangerous, who is absolutely puppeting a dead body. I told my employee to stop seeing this psycho, and they completely overreacted and stormed off. I was just trying to protect them from getting their heart broken or their arms tied in a literal knot behind their back or something. Am I the asshole?
I mean, Harrow, you could have gone about it better.
True.
Yeah. Really could have. Really could have.
True.
Well, it seems like you have a pretty phenomenal handle on the characters at Canaan House. But what about the world they live in? So let's take a moment to get into the incredibly enlightening details in the back matter of Gideon the Ninth.
Act 4. Anyone can learn to fight. Hardly anyone learns to think. There's a lot of deeply fascinating details packed into the notes at the end of Gideon the Ninth, and I wanted to start with what we learned about what a necromancer really is. Actually, that's not where I want to start. What I want to start with is please tell me that you watched the YouTube clip, the YouTube animatic that I sent you.
Yes. I found myself getting emotional at the end. Congratulations.
It's heartbreaking. It's quite lovely. Can you describe what it is for our listener? We'll try and link it in the show.
This is an animatic.
It's a really fabulous cover of Hosier's Take Me to Church. It's very good.
And it's an animatic of Gideon the Ninth. Everything about it is like really, it'll put you in your feels about this book. But one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that everybody watched it is because the way that all of the characters are drawn is actually faithful to how Tamsin imagined and described the characters, because even though she doesn't describe them specifically in the book, somebody basically asked her on Tumblr when she was still on Tumblr, like, what do they look like? I want to make fan art.
It's a beautiful video. I love the animation in it. And it's it manages to hit every point. It's just like in little things you kind of forget. This, like, the one that gets me weirdly is the one where she hugs Harrow after Harrow stands up for Camilla.
Blushy blush.
Yeah, that was cute.
To the point on, like, you know, artists wanting more detailed descriptions of characters for fan art, I like nothing outside of maybe like exact skin tone, like nothing was really different for me when I'm reading her more explicit details. Like, she doesn't like focus on descriptors outside of like eyes or hair for the most part. But like even just like height, body shape, like all of that kind of like is portrayed and with what she gives you in the book. Like nothing changed for me by reading more explicit descriptions outside of, I guess, like skin tone.
And I kind of like that that's the way that she like writes and describes her characters, is that she focuses on like eye and hair color and like height and body type. And then the rest you have to...
it's your vibes. It's how you like interface with somebody's personality, which I think is the most important thing when you're describing somebody, and not necessarily like their eye color.
Yeah. Although again, actually one of the things that I really dig about Tamsin Muir is her description of specifically fighting choreography. And I feel like you do get a sense of people's... She likes the way people move. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that sort of comes through, even if you don't know a lot about like their body shape or their body type, you can feel when someone moves in a way that's willowy compared to someone who moves in a way that's very like
bulky,
heavy. Yeah, exactly.
Martial.
Yeah, for instance, I had forgotten how good Cam was based on their initial sword fight in the basement with Gideon. Like that has just like faded in the back of my mind, but rereading it, I was just like, oh, she kicked a dagger off the floor into her hand and then did a backflip down the stairs. It's
She's
like,
so cool.
Yeah, but you didn't need the description of her as being like tight and compact because she's described basically as a gymnast. Like your brain already produces it.
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah.
Are there any particular details that you found interesting either from the glossary or the sermon on necromancers and cavaliers?
I mean, yes, there was enough interesting details in there that I made a slightly modified mega theorem. So I'm going to say yes, and maybe we can discuss that later.
Okay.
Let's build up into that.
Were there any, can you give us like some of the details at least? Like,
Yeah, so the fact that all the planets in the solar system aren't just dying planets, but are dead planets producing stable radiation is very interesting.
yes.
The fact that I guess we should have known this, but there were only 7 lictors originally, not 8, because, right, the ninth house didn't exist yet when they created the lictors is very interesting.
Yeah.
The timing on things was really interesting. So, like, I had to, like, basically put a timeline in our murder board to try to figure out, like, when the resurrection happened versus when the houses were dying versus when the planets died, which all feed into the theory here. And then, yeah, there was just, like, a lot of, like, interesting things about the systems of how things work. We get, like, a deeper explanation of the magic. We get some nice Easter eggs that, necromancers can create basically holes in space to travel faster by, like, going, basically a portal, which is interesting. Like, death space is not the same as life space.
Yeah, what I find interesting is, at the beginning we talked about, we never really talk about how necromancy works. But we get into necromancy. Like, we get into thalergy and thanergy in these chapters, right? She clearly has, like, a system in her head that makes sense. And that is probably full of Easter eggs that are, like, will connect multiple books.
I mean, she really has like thought about what she thinks thanergy and thalergy are and how they work. And so I like the descriptions here. I also I really liked, John picked up on these like thanergetic versus thalergetic planets. And it's something that actually shows up in the sermon on necromancers and cavaliers as well. Some of the goals of a cavalier or a necromancer and the ways they work well or not. One of the things that I think is really interesting, actually, in the first term in the glossary is the necromancer. And it says that there's like no obvious way to tell whether you're going to have a necromancer ahead of time. There's no isolated genetic code, right? It can happen anytime. But that necromancer like bodies are kind of, so a very common side effect is physical weakness and also
Apart from heightened activity from organs we would otherwise mark as vestigial?
yeah. So like it is about necromancer body at some point, maybe. Hard to tell. Not just like thinking real hard.
Yeah, is the appendix the necromantic organ?
Yes.
Right. I think that like ultimately the biggest stuff that I picked on also was more about the universe in which necromancy exists and its history, because we basically are given a lot of information about what's happened, right? So typically planets and stars are thalergenic, and these are the kinds of planets that are found like outside of the empire or like, I guess, the solar system. And on these planets, no necromancers are born. Presumably that's like, the world we live in today, right? We live on a presumably thalergenic style planet where we don't have necromancy. And when necromancers are fighting on these planets against, I guess, terrorists, as written in the propaganda that was the sermon on necromancers and cavaliers.
Propaganda, interesting word.
Yeah. Necros require their calves to produce thanergy by killing the living, right? So presumably this is, the pre-resurrection state of the Empire's home planets and Dominicus. These are all thalergenic planets. But then we have like some Ragnarok like mass dying off of the system's planets that destroyed all life. That's direct quote. And so we have these thalergenic planets and stars that are generating life moving into a thanergy state, right? So these are dead planets or dying planets.
Well, they're not even dead, right? It says that planets can become dying, but rarely do they become stable dead planets, which is what we have.
But I think that's referring to outside of the system that can't happen.
I get the idea that this is a step-by-step process, is that there was a mass dying off where these thalergy planets became thanergy planets, just a lot of death energy existing. That might be the 10 billion people, because like all life was destroyed at this point. That will release a lot of thanergy, but it's not stably producing it. This is just the product of death, right? the ninefold resurrection is where these Thanergy planets seem to have been converted into Thanergetic planets, ones that have, like, for whatever reason, a stable production of death energy. And so I think this is a step-by-step process that happened based off of the clues that they gave us of Thalergy planets are what this whole system used to be. There was a mass dying off that would have turned it into a Thanergy planet, and then a resurrection makes it Thanergetic, where it's actually stably producing death energy.
What about, like, the sermon on Cavaliers and Necromancers? I always find it really fascinating, like, that there are, like, very specifically talks about how close you're supposed to be with your Cavalier if you're a Necromancer, but also explicitly, like, it's gross if it's sexual, and it's also super weird if it's sibling energy. Like, how do you feel about, like, the whole way that this relationship is described?
It was weird. I mean, there were definitely parts of that where it's just like, this is a little icky or weird. Like, it's just...
It was written by someone in the second house. Like, to me, this is because this is an collected works of M. Bias. So, house rules.
Yep.
I'm going with written by the second house, and to me, that tells you a lot. Which is that there's this feeds into the idea that this is all propaganda. That this
military
is how you
propaganda.
Should be. This is the proper. This is the proper form etiquette of being these two people. It doesn't leave room for individuality, which we've seen so much of throughout this book, right? It's complete. This is saying this is how you should be. And meanwhile, we've just seen examples of every type that shouldn't be.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I don't know exactly what. Very quickly, I was just like, this is fucking propaganda.
It is interesting to me. One of the things in that I thought was really interesting was that they make clear that each house kind of has a different way of choosing. That, like, the 8th house likes it to be paired from birth, whereas the 2nd house likes to pair, like, 2 medium-high ranked people who just seem like they would work well together.
Oh.
And the 5th house is comfortable with, marriage pairs, but nobody else is. And so it definitely was interesting that this is something so standardized that it must exist in every house, but not so standardized that it's, like, an identical format, right? Like, there's this really interesting moment actually in Gideon the Ninth when Silas says something to Camilla or to Pal that he's like, he doubts the legality of his Cavalier. And it's not clear to me from this sermon how legally binding it is or whether it's equally legal in each house.
You've touched on kind of the reason I, like, don't trust this very well as, like, a true historical record, is because there's this idea that's, like, permeating this whole sermon that things have been the same for 10,000 years. This is how it is done. This is how it's always been done. And I don't trust that. Like, things change, especially over that amount of time. And so just they might be describing how things are done currently, but to say that that is how it's always been makes no sense, especially when, as you're saying, there are all these different ideas. How could an entire house stick to a single idea that is different from another house?
Over 10,000 years?
For 10,000 years.
But I mean, it's a sermon. It's a sermon. So obviously it is supposed to be a persuasive speech.
Okay, here you go.
I don't know if I'm just in a mind space where I'm just prepared for propaganda and lies, mostly because the most recent other books I've been reading, I read the entire Fourth Wing series, and that is, like, hard, like, very rooted in propaganda and, like, selective history. I don't think that's a spoiler. Well, it might be a little bit of a spoiler, but if you haven't read Fourth Wing at this point...
Nah, I read book 1.
Interesting. Yeah. Don't tell me. I'm just about to start them. Go on.
And then the other book I'm reading, which is Sword of Kaigan, which is also...
Oh my god, I love that book.
Me too! I'm halfway through it right now!
I think, like...
I was up till 2 a.m. the other night reading it.
I'm, like, 9 chapters in, and there's clearly, like, a propaganda element of that.
Oh my god.
Maybe I'm just, like, stuck in a propaganda mind space,
right.
But, like, am I getting...
I'm also reading Sword of Kaigan at the same time.
Pilled into, like, under... like,
Sword of Kaigan devastated me because it isn't a series. It was so clearly written to be a series, and then...
That's why I love it. Nope, I refuse. I love the fact that it's not a series.
Anyway.
It is a single standalone story.
You get to the end,
you're right,
and then you might
end.
be mad that it's not a series.
Like 2/3.
No.
Anyway,
I love a standalone story.
I have one last thing. I do love a standalone story, and so I will point you to Blood Over Bright Haven, which is also written by M.L. Wong and narrated by Moira Quirk. Anyway.
All right, there's the crossover.
Okay. There's one last thing in this sermon that I have to read which is the lictoral note on cavaliers and necromancers, which is like the very sacred piece of paper that is nearly 10,000 years old, kept in secret in a chemical file
best part
within
of
the
book.
library of the sixth house to guard against the ravages of time. And it might explain jokes that Hannah and I have been making this entire fucking time, where the
I don't know.
note
I feel like this is obvious.
Valency says, one flesh, one end sounds like instructions for a sex toy. Can't stop thinking about that. So can someone stop Chris and Alfred before the sex toy phrase catches on? Thanks.
I love that. I love that so much.
Marie,
Pointing
I
out
have
the
a theory
obvious.
about who wrote that. But, Brooke brought up some of these larger questions about the universe and the planets, like within the solar system without. The other question that I know Marie wanted to touch on a little bit was maybe thinking about which planet has which house. And we both have opinions on this, and you guys might too. Marie, do you want to give us some of your insight?
This is my version of where everything is. So Gideon the Ninth only gives us confirmation for houses 1, 6, 7, and 9, like textual evidence. I have very strong feelings about the second just from Gideon the Ninth. And then like it's continues to be later on, but there's never any textual evidence for second house. I don't
know that I agree with that. There's some in Nona that feels like a little bit pointed.
Okay, so maybe maybe we do.
Yeah.
I do have textual evidence for the fifth, and I don't think that saying that I have the evidence is a spoiler, but it is in Hero of the Ninth, so I can't tell you what it is, because it's like a minor line, like the same one that gives us the 6th and 7th house planets in Gideon. And my reasons for the 3rd, 4th, and 8th are just from strong feelings from Hero of the Ninth, plus textual evidence in the cohort files. And so again, I don't think that giving my order of the planets is spoilery, but why I have strong feelings might be, so I can't tell you why I have strong feelings other than just trust me. So we're going to say that Mercury is the 6th house, Venus is the 7th, Earth is the 1st. That's absolutely textual evidence. Mars is the 2nd. We feel pretty confident that you could make that conclusion even just from Gideon the Ninth.
Tamsin and, the 9 houses love fucking Greek and Roman mythology. So I feel like it is appropriate to remind yourself that Venus is Aphrodite, is the goddess of love. Literally, Cytherea is another word for Aphrodite. She's the 7th house lictor. Like, Mars is fighting. The 2nd house is all about military. Like, these things work really well.
Yeah. My controversial take that I don't think that I've seen anywhere when people are trying to parse out where the planets are is that the 3rd is not actually on a planet, that it is in the asteroid belt, and that it is on the huge,
it's because of Ida.
Yeah, the huge, massive fucking asteroid called Ida that has its own moon. Or at least its own moon satellite thing. Like, it's a huge asteroid.
If it's called Ida, I think that's really fucking compelling.
Yeah.
And I like that as the jeweled belt of the 9 houses.
Yeah. And then Jupiter, I think that on the moons of Jupiter, the 4th might be on the moons of Jupiter. So that one's kind of a controversial one. And the 5th is absolutely on the moons of Jupiter for sure. There's textual evidence.
It's also worth pointing out that from Gideon the Ninth, the 5th house has Coniortis Court.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pronounce it right, but that's like where, they are like the royals of Coniortis Court. And it means something like raised dust or flying dust, which I take as an allusion to the red spot, the storm. Yeah.
And then Saturn, sometimes people give this to the 3rd because it's the jewel of the solar system. I don't.
So Saturn is Kronos. Saturn is the Roman equivalent of Kronos, who is the Titan father of all of the Greek gods, including Zeus. And his whole deal was that he would eat his own children so that they would not take him over. And that does that's giving siphoning vibes and also animophilia vibes. So I would be okay with either throwing the 3rd or the 8th here.
I put the 8th on Uranus. I've never seen any textual evidence for where the 8th actually is, but we just put them there because they're a pack of assholes.
I think that makes perfect sense.
So, this is a tiny spoiler, but I think it's an okay spoiler to say that the 4th house original cavalier was named Titania, and the biggest moon of Uranus is Titania. So,
and Isaac Titaris was born on Tisus.
I think that Tisus. I have notes for these. I looked them up.
I didn't
but I think that
there wasn't much.
Tisus is, you have Hubris, Attis, Nemesis, and Titus. It's like an arc in tragic stories, and Tysis is like complete destruction. So Tysis doesn't really give you something in terms of places. But Ops is that might give more information to say that they're on Saturn, actually, because Ops is the goddess of fertility who is the wife of Saturn. So the 4th might be on Saturn, and then the 5th is absolutely on Jupiter. And then Neptune, sometimes people give that to the 3rd because of the trident white knife, and then that leads you to Poseidon/Neptune. And then we know for sure that Pluto is the 9th, or at least we're as much evidence as we have. We're pretty sure that Pluto is the 9th. So anyway, that's where we think things are. That's where I think things are.
I also actually kind of like the version where, like, you know, when they're setting up the 9 houses, they're planning on having one per planet, but maybe some of the planets really are fucking not that habitable, so they end up on asteroids instead, but they still retain the name, things like that.
Yeah.
Like that, there's something there.
If you had to live on another planet other than Earth, where would you want to be?
Mars is fine. I don't want to be much further out than that.
Icy rock.
It depends. I mean, we already know that the time it took to travel from Pluto to Earth was like an hour in a shuttle. So at that point, like, that's my commute.
Yeah, but theoretically, you could terraform Mars, or at least have like domes and stuff, and you would still have like moderately like sunlight, kind of like Earth.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, you don't get the sun. You get artificial lighting.
I get a kick out of the idea of being on like a moon of Jupiter or Saturn because the view would just be fucking stunning. Like, the view would be so gorgeous
and dark
from your little spaceship window.
Dude, stick me on one of these border planets they're conquering. They sound awesome. Like,
Actually, true.
If I'm not going to live on a
houses.
planet that's in the solar system, fuck that. I'm going to live somewhere like totally different. Like Mars is just like we're going to terraform it so that it's like, you know,
Earth
a shittier version of Earth. Yeah, no. Send me somewhere else.
I'm considering Venus. I'm not a fan of the cold.
All right. Is there anything else that you guys want to bring back and talk about from the naming conventions or the glossary or the sermon or the cohort files? Anything?
Ridiculous thing from the cohort files. I'm pretty sure that the cohort files basically tells you that the 6th only puts people into the cohort in order to be like baby trap everybody else to increase their genetic diversity.
Oh, well, not explicitly, but I could see how you would piece that together.
It is very clear that the 6th house is pretty intentional about avoiding inbreeding, which is hard to do when you're a fucking space station.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's bad when you know too much about genetics, man. The 7th house knows too much, but they just embrace it.
That's interesting because they live on a space station, but then necromancy comes from your appendix, and it's reminding me that when you go to Antarctica, one of the things you have to do, they take your appendix out.
Really?
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
No
So you
medical
can't-
emergencies there.
You can't have medical emergencies in Antarctica, so they take out your appendix preemptively if you're going to be on like the
Prophylactic
Appendectomy?
appendectomy. I'm.
Is that like if
I
you're
am-
going on a cruise to Antarctica,
No.
or if you're like going to go
No,
stay
that's
there
if you're
as a
staying
scientist?
as a scientist on the
Okay.
station. Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Probably wisdom teeth too. I think they do
No.
wisdom teeth in the military.
Can't we just fix the diet on Antarctica?
I don't think there's anything you can really do
Jesus
to
Christ.
prevent appendicitis. I got it very thematically when we were doing the rat dissections, I thought.
Oh my God.
You looked at it and your body was like, ooh, one of those.
Yeah. I was like,
We don't
see
need
this?
that
Rats
one."
have a cecum. We don't. We have an appendix. You don't need that because it will explode and make
I
you
think-
ill.
I think that's karma.
I know.
Fair
we
enough.
need to not do the rats anymore. We're trying to not do the rats anymore, okay?
No, I have nothing else from these sections.
I have a big conspiracy theory, but are we there yet?
Okay,
Yes,
well,
let's do it. Please tell us.
Incidentally, do either of you have final big conspiracies you want to throw out before we start moving into our second season?
So the new mega theorem I have:
Love a mega theorem.
humanity, which was a solar system spanning people, discovers necromancy 10,000 years ago, roughly. Doesn't matter. That opens the like version of them fucking up like the life and death cycle, or they open Pandora, like a metaphorical Pandora's box. Something gets fucked. Like the cat is out of the bag. So the solar system starts dying. Humanity gets corrupted. So the God Emperor uses the theorems and lictors the souls of all 9 planets and kills all 10 billion people to resurrect the houses. I think Ianthe says that you would need to displace the soul of a planet to do something. So I think the reason that the planets are all staple dead planets is because the God Emperor figured out how to lictor a planet or siphon from a planet, something along those lines, and then killed the 10 billion people and the planets to resurrect all the houses that had necromantic bloodlines or like were involved in necromancy. So maybe Cannon House is a like death lightning rod or, some way to, kill the planet. And then we use that to kill like Death, Hades, some demon lord, just like some evil bad guy. And then we stick that in the tomb of the ninth house. So the solar system has dead planets because they're lictored it and they lictor the planet souls. And now they're in this weird stable state. We're conquering the known universe to prevent further corruption, like what happened to Column, and to have more planet souls to fuel the Emperor. The Emperor is eternal because he's siphoning planets, and the reason that the lictors fade and the Emperor is not is because he's constantly getting new energy sources as a part of this. Thanergy and Thaurgy still obeys the laws of physics to an extent, and so they're pulling energy from somewhere. Like, if they're pulling energy from death, it's got to be fucking up something, or like there's a vacuum somewhere, and so they have to continually create new energy. I don't think the Necrolord Prime is a good person. I think he fucked up somewhere, and we're like killing the universe to cover up his transgressions. And then the other pieces I have here, because I was rereading it, and I got to the point where Pal and Cam can't figure out what Cannon House is doing, like in terms of time, or like nothing makes sense. So I think when they killed the planet and the people, Cannon House was a part of it, and so it's like in a weird preservation state because it says they're being lied to at like an atomical level, and so I don't think they're incorrect. I think it's literally that Cannon House is just like floating in this weird like life, death, dead planet place where like the laws of them, how they normally age things, isn't working. 7 lictors, 8 keys and challenges, but the challenges were set up after they had achieved lictorhood. So they were planning for additional lictors.
Where do you get that from?
Because
where
I
do
don't
you get your 7.
At the end of the book, they said there's 7 lictors. Like the last blurb in the glossary says there's 7 lictors.
What?
Where did I put my book down?
Wait, my question was different though, which is where do you get?
Well, because it looks like from the research labs, they figured out lictorhood via the labs, and then somebody would have to set up the challenges.
I see what you're saying.
Would it have made sense for the God Emperor to have all of the lictors do the challenges to figure it out themselves? Or did he do it as part of their resurrection?
No, I get what you're saying.
There was a process created, and there's 10 labs, and there's only 7 lictors. It's just, there's a lot.
You can consider it like the ultimate project that was like an intermediate step to understanding the whole thing.
But they basically created an escape room to teach people how to become lictors. I don't know. It's weird. The last piece I have in here is that I was rereading, I was listening to our conspiracy theories again, and I said that I think because of the blood under the fingernails with Harrow, and that's how she got into the tomb, because Gideon is part lictor or like something like that. I was rereading it, and it says it's a blood ward designed only for the Necrolord Prime. I don't know where I got, like, it would also work for lictors, but I'm now, along with the fact that Dulcinea is very interested in Gideon's eyes, and we now know eyes are super important, I think Gideon is a descendant or like a part of the Necrolord Prime. Like part of the process here was...
Cytherea seems to think that Gideon is maybe one of her lictor friends, or very reminiscent of another Gideon she knew, yes. Right?
So...
But better eyes, to your point.
Yeah.
Maybe Gideon was actually the necro.
Yeah. And so now my theory is that maybe the God Emperor has a lot of children because he's, in theory, the only person still alive from the pre-corruption, pre-resurrection bloodlines.
John, I had this thought. Like, do you think lictors can have children?
I don't see why not.
Or is that the resurrection purity line?
All right, I'm throwing it out there. Gideon's the descendant of Necrolord Prime God Emperor.
of our NP.
Yes. That's it.
RNP, I really like.
Yes.
Wait, our NP is what I like to call it. John, in your notes, he's always GE, God/Emperor. Okay, wait. I have one thing that I want to stir the pot with because I've been thinking a lot about this. What do you think about the fact that the Emperor says to Harrow in the epilogue, I saved the world once, but I didn't do it for me. right? So that means he did it for someone else, someone else's. My thought is that the girl in the tomb he did it for. She's the cost of the resurrection. So who is she to him that he would do some gigantic thing? And it also allows him to then not be a hero, right? Like your idea that he's not a good person, that he's in this kind of incidentally for this other person. He
killed all the planets and all the people to resurrect one person.
Or to like save her from some terrible experience. She's like chained. It looks like kind of exorcism-ish as how they describe her. As like being chained in a tomb. Like maybe she was possessed and like the cost of her exorcism.
So then do we think like the other statements about being an enemy that he defeated, that like the death of the emperor or something, like do we think that's literal just propaganda or like a metaphorical, like if she came back?
No, I think it could all fit in together. No, I don't think she's the enemy. I think maybe my current thought is that she got like possessed by a devil and that she was exorcised. That was defeating the enemy, but then he also knows that like souls kind of can get tangled up together, and when you get rid of one soul, you get rid of both. That's what he says about he can't extract Gideon from Harrow. So I don't know. Those are the beads I'm stringing together.
That fed into my theory about why Gideon is actually a descendant of the emperor and not like part lictor, because very explicitly when Harrow says, "Can you pull a soul out?" and he says you can't do that. So originally, one of my conspiracy theories was that, you know, we had 3 partial lictors, and it seems like the emperor said very explicitly that you can't move souls around like that. Yeah. So that threw that out. So that, I think the only piece after that is that Gideon is a child of the emperor or a descendant of the emperor.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Or something that he says can't happen, but actually can to some extent. Or you can move them together.
This is the problem with reading other books based on propaganda, is now it's like, is the emperor lying to us the whole time? Which is so annoying.
John, the cake is a lie.
Oh, God.
Okay. I think we're good. We're good.
Okay.
At the very beginning of Frontline 5th, we played the delectable Third House classic party game, Fuck, Marry, Kill, or Resurrect. And at the time, we were playing with a bunch of characters that Brooke and John knew nothing about, because they are good kids and we are evil nuns. And in penance, we have decided to give them a chance to revisit their answers. So welcome back to FMKR. We're going to start with Fuck, Marry, Kill, or Resurrect, Dulcinea Septimus, the real one, Palamedes Sextus, Abigail Pent, and Colum Ashed. What do you all think?
Okay, well, for some reason, Abigail Pent sounds like somebody I would not get along with. So I'm going to kill her. I don't know who Colum Ashed is. I'm gonna resurrect him. Dulcinea Septimus. Oh, it sounds so nice. Feels like somebody you would marry. Palamedes Sextus. Well,
Palamedes.
Yeah, last name is Sextus. So I think we fucked Palamedes.
I guess Abigail is who we're fucking. And then we're marrying Palamedes. We're killing Colum, and we're resurrecting Dulcinea. What is it? Dulcaneus?
Dulcinea.
Oh, God. Dulcinea. Yeah.
I'm marrying Abigail. Oh, no, this is awful. This works out great. I marry Abigail. I fuck Palamedes. I resurrect Dulcinea, and I kill Colum.
Weirdly, I resurrect Colum, who I feel like does not get nearly enough credit.
Then who do you kill?
Dulcinea.
I'm marrying Abigail, and I'm resurrecting Colum. No! I'm resurrecting Palamedes! And I'm definitely fucking the real Dulcinea, which means I have to kill Colum, which seems like a shame, but it's just, it is what it is.
I can't remember what I picked the first time, but yeah, I think that's the.
I think I'm the same with.
Yeah,
I agree. Which it is a shame.
Mine is a little different. I have no interest in fucking Dulcinea. I feel like I would feel uncomfortable the whole time, worried I was gonna break her because she's so sick. So I'm gonna fuck Colum, and bring a little bit of life into his life. And I am gonna go ahead and kill Dulcinea. She's pretty close to death anyway. I feel bad about it, but I don't feel that bad about it.
You know what? That's valid too.
I think that's really real. I support that, Hannah. I have no qualms.
Okay. All right. What if it's not Dulcinea Septimus and it's actually Cytherea? Do your answers change? Because mine does.
I mean, Yours changes. All right, Hannah.
Definitely fuck Kitharia.
Say, I'm keeping the exact same answers. Yes, for similar reasons.
You know what? Yeah.
No, I disagree.
Tell us, Brooke.
I'm going with Hannah's original answer.
That's beautiful. All right. Well, let's move out of, just absolute imposter territory. Fuck, marry, kill, resurrect. Ianthe, Coronabeth, Nibirius, or Protesilaus. So we've got all three of the thirds and Protesilaus, who is alive at this time.
All right, we're fucking Coronabeth, marrying Nibirius, resurrecting Ianth, and killing Protesilaus.
We are killing Ianthe. Protesilaus will marry him. Coronabeth feels like a good fuck. Don't know why.
I think we're all there.
And that leaves us resurrecting Nibirius.
I am just going to heartily agree with Brooke and just leave it there.
I agree with Brooke and Marie.
I think fuck Ianthe, marry Coronabeth, kill Nibirius, resurrect Pro.
That feels really solid. Marie, why are you giggling?
Wait, straight down the line. She's laughing because
I was like really struggling with Ianthe because I was like, I don't want to kill her. I definitely don't want to marry her. I absolutely have no interest in fucking her. Like, that seems like a dangerous game. And I'm like, all that leaves is resurrect. The only person I'm interested in potentially fucking is I'm curious about Pro. I mean, not the dead version. Not the dead version.
Obviously.
Yes, the large sack of lemons man, but also who clearly is a father of several children based on
right?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I think I marry Protesilaus. He seems like in real life he might be a good, warm, friendly, cool guy who
Yeah. There we go.
Gardening.
We marry Pro. We kill Nibirius. Sorry, Nibirius. Nobody cares. We do fuck Corona, which leaves resurrecting Ianthe.
I'm committed to mine.
No,
John?
No, yeah, I'm sorry. We're definitely fucking Ianthe. We're resurrecting Protesilaus.
This is because we haven't read Harrow, probably.
Yeah, this might age as poorly as our first take based on Harrow.
Yeah. I marry Pro, I fuck Corona, I kill Nibirius, I resurrect Ianthe, just like Marie. Okay. All right. What about our last one? Silas, Magnus, Judith, and Camilla.
Oh, we're fucking Magnus Quinn.
Tell me more, Brooke.
He's Magnus. This is excellent. We're gonna. The rest of this I was not prepared for. Let's go ahead and fuck a Camilla. No, wait. I already fucked Magnus. Shit. Okay, we're fucking Magnus. We're fucking Magnus. We'll marry Camilla. She's a queen. Judith. Oof. We gotta kill Judith. You don't keep Judith alive. And that means we're resurrecting Silas. And not super committed to these choices, but comfortable enough.
All right, we are 100% killing Silas. We are marrying Judith. We're resurrecting Magnus. I guess we're fucking Camilla.
That's a good choice.
This is a really hard set for me.
This one is not hard. This one is not hard. We are going to kill Silas, fuck Magnus, resurrect Judith, and marry Camilla.
I understand those choices immediately, and I respect them. And my hatred for Judith is like disproportionate. So I have to kill Silas for obvious reasons, because he's the fucking worst. But it's hard for me not to kill Judith. I want you to know that. So I'm going to fuck Judith, but it's going to be a hate fuck. I marry Magnus and I resurrect Camilla.
Oh.
This might be the easiest one.
Disagree.
Oh, really? Go, John.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, not for me.
All right, we're obviously killing Silas. We're resurrecting Magnus. We're marrying Camilla, and we're fucking Judith. I don't think there's at least for me, there's no other answers for that one.
I might go with marry Magnus and resurrect Camilla instead.
I marry Magnus and I fuck Camilla.
That means you have
Oh,
to
then I
marry
have
Judith.
to resurrect him. Oh, no, I have to resurrect Judith. Okay,
No, wait. Oh, right. Well, that's not bad either. That sounds good. All right, that's fine. Judith. Come
Okay,
on.
here's what it is.
She's not inherently
She's
evil.
just-
Either Judith or Silas, I'm going to resurrect. But either way, they are obliged to go to therapy for like the rest of their lives. And I think that will make them better people that I don't feel bad about resurrecting. I think I am going to marry Magnus and fuck Camilla. Damn. This is what happened the first time around. And I decided that I was going to fuck Judith, but it was going to be a hate fuck.
I have no interest in Judith, but I do pity her, so I would resurrect her, and I have no qualms about killing Silas. I don't think I see your point with resurrecting him and making him go to therapy, but I just really don't think he's the deconstructing type.
Yeah. I feel like there was something in him once that was a good kid, but then he grew up.
Oh man.
All right, what if we kill both of them and I refuse to play the game correctly?
No. Sorry.
A very third house of you,
Yeah.
honestly.
I stand by that this was by far the easiest one for me.
With that, I think we closed out our FMKR. We've come full circle. I'm so glad that you got to actually find out about these people now that you had already fucked, married, killed, and resurrected them.
I don't know how far off we were. I just don't remember exactly. Marie's going to have
Yep.
to go and splice those in.
Have fun editing, Marie!
Act 6. See you next time, my little nunlets. Well, it looks like we are done with book 1 of The Locked Tomb, but don't worry. Tamsin has all sorts of extras packed away for us to pass the time until season 2, so we will be back next week with 2 episodes. One where we read The Mysterious Study of Dr. Sex, safe for anyone who has read Gideon, and one where we invite on some special guests to join Hannah and I reading As Yet Unsent, which is full of spoilers for Harold the Ninth. If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontlinefifth.podbean.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. Pad those numbers, baby. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, we don't care. Feel free to lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. If you were on Patreon, you got those spoiler episodes early. You can become a patron, and we do love our patrons, at patreon.com/frontlinefifth. And finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontlinefifth@gmail.com. With that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye!
Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Maria Adamako and starring Maria Adamako, Hannah Grunwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Maria Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.
But I feel like
Yeah.
she'd love us.